couple of quick reminders. First of all, if you have not already, we encourage you to follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, YouTube, and you can find us at all of those at CrossLink Tax, all one word. So facebook.com/CrossLink Tax, twitter.com/CrossLink Tax, Google+, YouTube the same. So we highly encourage you to follow us, and not only you, but also your preparers in your tax offices, as we put out a lot of great information during the tax season, industry updates as they happen, tax updates from Mark Castro, our tax specialist here, and then also a lot of great product features, updates, tips and tricks, things like that. So again, highly recommend you follow us there. Also, if you have not already looked at all of the webinars that we will be having over the next couple of weeks, you can find those at crosslinktax.com, and on the top, under the events tab, you can find and click on fall webinars, and there we list all of the current webinars that we have coming up, including next week we have one on completing Affordable Care Act related forms. I know that one will be a popular one. So encourage you to go there to the CrossLink Tax website, look at those, and register for any remaining webinars that we have that you might be interested in. All right, last but not least, if you have any questions during the webinar today, you can find those, you can find the questions tab on the bottom right portion of your GoToWebinar menu screen. So if you have any questions, enter them in there, and we will do our best to answer them at the end of the presentation. All right. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our senior training specialist, Jeff Watson, who will be presenting completing a basic individual return with CrossLink 1040. Jeff?
Thanks, Justin. Let's just get started here. Here is CrossLink 1040. Just to kind of show you around, when you open up the screen, it lands you on what's called the work in progress summary. And we have up at the very top a menu system, menu bar. So it just works like any other Windows product. So you can select whatever you need to from here. Underneath that, we have a toolbar. These are quick access to those features in the program that you need access to quickly. So things like adding a return to the system or transmitting to the IRS or to our central site. Those are things that you might need to have access to fairly quickly, and we provide those in the toolbar at the very top of this program. Underneath the toolbar is the information bar, and this is very important. It starts off with the user ID number. This is how we identify you when you transmit with a return or when you call our support. They might ask, what is your user ID number? And that's right here at the top of the program. The other thing that I feel is important to point out is the tax year and the program year are different from each other. You might be using CrossLink 2015, but the tax year is going to be 2014. This one I'm using a demo, so I can show you guys some of the stuff inside a return. So I'm using last year's demo, but this will reflect the tax year of the program as well as the version that you're currently at. Now, why this is important is some of the things that you may be experiencing may have been fixed with a new update. So you want to make sure that you're at the most current version of the program. And this is something that the support staff will ask you as well. What version of the software are you at? That's right here, right in the middle of the screen. Now, there are a few different ways we can start a return. One of them is just clicking on Select a Return here. That'll take us to the return selection grid, and we can click the Add button up at the top here. That'll get us to begin a return. We'll enter our social security number. Now, we're on a different screen, so I want to show you guys around a little bit. If I leave this search blank and click Go, it'll list out all of the returns I have in my system. Here they all are. Also, if you notice at the very bottom, there's a scroll bar that'll let you see some of the stuff that's off to the right. There's an awful lot of information that may kind of fly under the radar for you. So make sure that you know you can scroll to the left and the right on the screen as well. If you want to change the search criteria, you can click on this little upside down triangle here, and you can change it to the prepare ID or the creator of the return, whatever you're looking for. And additionally, if you want to search for a specific return, you can either enter the first few digits of the Social Security number and click Go. It'll bring it up that way. Or we can enter the first few letters of their last name and click Go, and it'll bring it up for you. So you don't have to complete that field, if you will. Okay, to go back to the work in progress, I'll click the WIP button in the toolbar. There is also an Add New button up at the top here. So right away, you can click Add New, and that'll take you straight to that return selection grid and open this Add New return window. Now, there is the last way to start a return, and that is by scanning a barcode on a W-2 or a 1099 or any other source documentation. You may have come across some W-2s with barcodes on them. We can use our integrated scanner to start a return based on that barcode. So here, I'll go ahead and scan my W-2 here. It'll enter that Social Security number there for us twice, and I'll click OK. And just to point out, if you have W-7 issues, you can click W-7. It'll get that ITIN started for you right away. But we'll go ahead and click OK, and it'll open up the return for us. Now, we know some information based on that W-2. On the W-2 is the taxpayer's name, so we enter that for you on this client data worksheet. Also, we know their address, so that is entered for you as well based on the information that's scanned on that barcode on the W-2. If we look at the W-2 itself, all of that information comes in 100% correct, including the state information at the very bottom. Additionally, if the W-2 has been scanned, CrossLink will know that and will ask for a verification. If you scan this, make sure that all this information came in correctly. If this scans with a different name or a different business, that could be a red flag for you that you'll need to get a corrected W-2, that this may be a fraudulent W-2. If it scans with different wage information, that's also going to be a red flag for you as well. So it'll be a very nice way, once we see more of them, to not only begin a return, but to make sure that that information is correct. Now we're inside a tax return. I want to show you around a little bit before we get started, just to make sure that we know where we're at. There's some things I'm going to refer to later on. It's nice to know where we're at. So we'll give you a lay of the land. Starting at the top again, here's the menu bar. And this changes depending on where you're at in the program. Now, instead of reports or utility, I have return and print. So pay close attention. Depending on where you're at in the program, these things will change. Notice also the toolbar is greatly increased. We don't want to clutter up the UI with a bunch of tools in places where you don't use them or you don't need them. So these things expand and contract depending on where you're at in the program. Also, the information bar is changed to include the taxpayer's name, the social, and the date the return was created. So these things do change depending on where you're at in the program. Across the left-hand side is what's called the attached forms list. So this is all the forms and all the little things that are attached to this tax return. It starts out with general information. This is generally the things that are attached to all returns. You'll always have a document archive. You'll always have a client data worksheet. It'll continue with the federal documents, and you can see there's kind of a running total that's going on here too. Also, it's color-coded. Green means they're getting a refund. Red means that they owe the IRS a balance due. Federal, any states that are attached will appear down here. All of that, anything that's attached to the tax return will appear in the attached forms list. And it's really nice and handy to navigate around the tax return as well. If I wanted to look at the 1040, I simply double-click on it in the attached forms list, and it displays it for me. And I can right-click, remove forms, add state from here, all kinds of stuff. Right in the middle of everything, this is what's called the open form pane. This is where you do most of your work. On the client data worksheet, this is where you're going to enter the taxpayer's personal information. At the very bottom of this screen is something that gets missed quite a bit. This little gray area at the very bottom is called the active options. And you can see right now I'm on the DOB field, and it's telling me that that's the taxpayer's date of birth field, and that it's a required field that we need to fill out in order to complete this return correctly. So any field will have line-by-line help attached to it. So if you're stuck or if you're lost, doesn't matter where in the program, you can refer below if you don't know, and it'll let you know. There's a line-by-line help down at the very bottom here. Also, there's 3 options here: choices, worksheets, and form links. I'm going to get to those here in just a minute, but I want to start and just really begin this return. There's definitely a method to completing these returns. We are a forms-based program. If we look at the W-2 here, this emulates what we get from the clients. When they hand us a W-2, we can enter that information line by line, letter for letter, number for number, because it all matches. Now, that being said, since we're a forms-based program, we don't have an interview method that asks you a series of questions to ensure that you know how to fill out the return. We're a professional tax program for professional tax preparers. So we design this to make sure that we can get through a return as fast as we possibly can. So the method is to start out with the client data worksheet. This is all the taxpayer's personal information, and this information will flow to the rest of the tax return. If I look at the 1040 here, my name and my address have leaped in at the top. You know, my single filing status, that's all there. So it's important to start on the client data worksheet so this information will pull into the rest of the tax return. And there's a couple of places I want to point out some things here. I don't want to fill out this entire return, but I do want to point out some of the options down below and some of the things that the way this client data worksheet works. Firstly, we have our occupations field here. Now, if we notice in our active options down below here, choices is lit up for us. It's enabled now. So we can click on choices, and now we have a list of occupations we can choose from to fill this field out. Now, when a field is attached to a database, there's a couple of things that happen. Firstly, in our database menu at the top left, we have an occupations, and there's a bunch of them in here. Employers, care providers, bank routing numbers, all sorts of information can be queued up so we can enter this and get through with this tax return very quickly. So I have occupations here, and we can set this up at the beginning of the year. But also, when we come to this field, I can hit the first letter. Let me get in here. I can hit the first letter of that option, and it'll begin to guess what I mean, what I want to put in there. So I can very quickly get that entered and move on. Also, if you know you have certain occupations at the beginning of the year, you can enter those occupations that are around you and make sure that those things are available when you're filling out the return. There's a section here for text messaging. We do have the ability to text message through our program. There's a few things that you have to be aware of first, though. One, you need a cell phone number, obviously. The next is we have to opt in for text messaging. So we have to mark this box. Some people still pay for text messaging, so we don't want to just spam them and charge them without their knowledge. So make sure that they understand that if the return is rejected or if it's ready to be picked up, whatever it may be, we can let them know through text messaging. Additionally, all of the cell phone carriers are available in our choice list as well. So this is all of them within the United States. Now, they do tend to crop up pretty quickly. So if you come across one that's not in here, just let us know. We'll add it. We can add them fairly quickly and get them in there. But what this does is it allows you to choose their carrier. Let's say it's AT&T, and it'll enter that carrier domain for you so that we can make sure that that text message is routed correctly to your taxpayer. Down to filing status. Now, we, again, our forms-based program, we're not going to ask you, a bunch of questions to figure out if somebody's married or if they're single. If you look down below, you can tell what it's asking for down here. Number 1 is single, 2 is married filing joint, and so on. If I enter single here and I hit tab, it will skip the spouse information because it knows that I don't have any to enter. Obviously, if I hit married filing joint, it'll forward to the spouse information. So again, this is a place where we're just trying to get you through a tax return as fast as possible. And I'll use head of household here. So there's our address. We have military information. All the combat zones are in a choice list down here, so you don't have to worry about memorizing each one of those. If the taxpayer wants their refund directly deposited into their bank account, we have a bank routing information and account information here. Now, this is important to get this entered correctly. What happens here is we have this attached to a database, so you can enter this at the beginning of the year, but this is also something that remembers the information that's put here. So if you enter information here and it's not yet in your database, once you complete the return, it will automatically save in that database. So I'll go ahead and choose here, and my account number will go in here. Now, one thing that we do is we make you verify that account number. So if you enter that information incorrectly, it will not enter. It has to be entered twice, and it has to match in order for that to go in there. There's a surefire way to upset a taxpayer, and that's to deposit their money into somebody else's account. So we try to protect you from that a little bit there. There's our checking. We have a referral field for referral type. Now, this isn't just for your referral programs. This is also connected to a choice list. It's connected to our referrals database, and we can enter information on our marketing. What is bringing customers into our offices? So if you have a radio ad or a television ad that you ran, you can enter those in the database, and then you can have that question asked to your clients, what brought you in, and you can choose it here. So this is a great way to figure out what part of that marketing money is actually working for you, the part that you're spending here. If you've spent $1,000 on a radio ad and $100 on 1,000 flyers, and more people are coming in because of those flyers, then this will let you know that, and also let you know that maybe printing those flyers out is a better place to spend your money. We have our insurance questions down below here. Now, this is a section, I'm using last year's program, so this is a section that's changed greatly. We do have a webcast that will go over these changes and how our program helps you with the Affordable Care Act and that kind of stuff. So this section has definitely changed. Now, once we get past that, we'll get to our dependents section. Now, notice worksheets has lit up now. This will let us enter, if this person has more than 9 dependents here, this will allow us to enter more dependents on an overflow worksheet. That's usually what those worksheets does for us. I'll go ahead and enter the name here. If the last name matches the primary taxpayer, you just enter the first letter, it'll guess. Now notice these codes over here are beginning to fill out. Now, I haven't entered that. That filled out on its own. Keep watch over here. Based on the information I enter, it'll begin to guess and assume certain things about this dependent. So I'll enter their birthday, and the name is calculated, or the age is calculated for us automatically. I'll enter our social. And relationship, I can hit S for son, D for daughter, N for niece or nephew, that kind of stuff. And then our MO field. If we don't know what MO means, we can look below, and it'll tell us this is the number of months the dependent lived with the taxpayer. CN for Canada, MX if they lived in Mexico. I'm just going to enter 12 here. And then again, watch these codes, right? So this stuff, if we want to know what it is, we can look below. It'll give us information. This one, press F3, And if I hit F3 on my keyboard, it'll tell me, okay, this means the dependent lived with the taxpayer. And these things aren't set in stone. We can change this at any time if this is different. This is just assuming some things based on the little bit of information we entered for our dependent. This E, this is eligible for EIC, an S for student, D for disabled, and so forth. And this X here just means that the system so far assumes that this child is eligible for child tax credit. We have one more code here. This is for the 2441 for dependent care. Now notice over here in my attached forms list, I don't have a 2441. What this box really does for us is, since we're here speaking of their dependents, we might as well ask them about dependent care. And if they had any, we'll mark this box, and I'm going to click refresh, and it'll add the 2441 for us. Now, you don't have to click refresh as you fill in the return. It'll automatically add these forms. I just wanted to remain on the client data worksheet, so I clicked refresh to be able to do that. We have one last field here, ST. And if we guess what this is, we might guess that it has something to do with the state use or the status of a return. Those are all good guesses. They start with ST. But if we look below here, we notice that this is specifically for Idaho grocery credit. So if we don't complete any Idaho returns, or we don't complete any with that grocery credit, we don't have to worry about this field at all. I point this out because this gets questions all the time. Somebody will ask you about this field at some point during the season. If you don't know, look below here. Line by line help will let you know what's going on. All right, that's the client data worksheet. And again, we start here because this information pulls into the rest of the return. This makes it so I don't have to type in the name, on every form. This will do it for us, or the address on every form. The next thing we want to do after we complete the client data is to enter our source forms, our W-2s, our 1099s. Now, I already entered one that was scanned. We scanned one at the beginning. And if I had more to scan, I could just scan away on my scan barcode forms over here, right? But if I need to add one that doesn't have a barcode, what I'll do is I'll come up to add forms up here. And Control-A will get us to the same window, all forms and schedules. So you can either click on this with your mouse, or you can hit Control-A with your keyboard to bring this up. Now notice the W-2 is highlighted. That's because this is the most commonly added form. So I can very quickly hit Control-A and enter, and it'll add a W-2 for me. In this case, since I already have a W-2, it'll ask me if I want to add a new occurrence or if I want to look at that old one. I want to show you a couple of things in this window before we go and add a W-2. One thing is, when we come in here, this search field is active already. We don't have to click in this field down below. So if we wanted to quickly add a Schedule C, let's say, I could hit Control-A. It'll bring open this window. I could hit the letter C, and it'll drop down straight to that form. If it's, let's say, an 8879, I can go straight to that form. Now, something that kind of flies under the radar for a lot of our guys, if you don't know the name of the form, maybe you're new to tax prep and you don't know the name of these forms yet, you can click on Index. And this will allow you to enter a description, let's say child, and it'll bring you straight down to those forms that have that description. So here we're straight down to the 2441. Union is another one. So union dues and expenses on the Schedule A. The other nice thing about Index, and Union is a good place to say this, is when I add this form from here, not only does it add the schedule, but it takes me straight to the worksheet where I need to enter those dues. Here's the union dues. So it's a really handy way to kind of speed through a tax return, especially if you don't know the name of those tax returns. Okay. We also have state information here. If you want to add a state, just find it in your list, and you can add the state form. And also our depreciation is in here as well. Now, once we Let me add a, actually I want to add another W-2 just to show you guys some stuff here. I'll add a new one. Okay, now we're at the employer identification number at the very top here. This is another dynamic database. This is one where you have all your employers, and you're welcome to enter that information at the beginning of the year. So you can enter that if you know some of them around you. But the nice thing about this is a dynamic database. So anything that you enter here, when you complete the return, will automatically save into the employer payers database. So you don't have to fill this in. That works just like the bank RTN's database. So these two will save for you, whereas the other ones you have to fill in automatic or manually. So I'll choose my employer. It'll fill in automatically for me here. My wages, right? And just like everybody else, 3, 4, 5, and 6, these boxes will fill in automatically. We'll enter our withholding. Right now, you may notice that when you're filling out a return that these numbers don't match. So one thing that I've come across is you want to make sure before you start changing these numbers, you want to make sure that you enter the rest of the form first. There are some things that that affect these numbers. So start off by entering the lines 1 and 2, and then look at the rest of the form. Do they have a retirement plan, which a lot of us do? We can enter that here. If we look at our choices, here's our 401k. We'll enter 3,000 here. And notice these numbers change now. So just a trick I've learned is enter those first 2 boxes and then look at the rest of the form to make sure there isn't anything else there, and then that'll save you some work on these 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. All right. Now we've entered our W-2. We've finished our client data worksheet. We've entered our W-2. The next thing we want to do is any of our state information, any of our schedules, any of that kind of stuff we'll enter just to make sure all that's done. I've entered a Schedule A. We can also go to state, and let's say we'll add Georgia here. We'll just double click on the main form and it'll add that state for us. And the nice thing about the states too is they kind of fill in for us, so a large amount of the work is done for you. Most of it's automated. All right, now when you are done with all the information that the taxpayer has given you, one thing that I like to do, and you may do this as well, is scan stuff like their driver's license or their W-2 or the Social Security card. I try to get these things that are frequent rejections from the IRS, so I don't have to contact the taxpayer so much. So I take scans of their driver's licenses and their W-2s and that kind of stuff. We have integrated into our program a document archive. What this allows us to do is scan those documents directly into the return. So instead of scanning and making hard copies of everything, we can scan those images directly into the return here. Now I'll use my integrated scanner. If you have your own scanner, you can import that stuff. I'll show you that in just a minute. But I have my handheld scanner here. I'll click Scan Document. And at the bottom, we can enter some identification, some categorization if we want. I'll just enter a New York driver's license here. And then what I'll do is I'll click Snap. Once I aim this, you'll hear a beep. And it'll take a picture of that driver's license. Here it is. And we can save this, and it'll be entered directly into their document archive. So attached to James' return is everything that James has scanned. And we have a little description here. We also have a timestamp of exactly when that image was taken and imported into the document archive. If we want to see this, I can double click on it. It'll pop up in a PDF format. I can print it. I can save a copy and email it if I need to, whatever needs to happen. Okay. Now, if you have your own flatbed scanner and you don't necessarily need our integrated scanner, we have an import document feature here. We can click import document and we can browse to wherever those documents you've scanned are and upload that directly to the document archive. I'll go ahead and do this shortcut here. We'll click open, we'll give it a description. It could be anything, Word documents, PDFs. I'm uploading a shortcut right now. We'll click OK, and it'll give that description. It'll give a timestamp. It'll let you know that it's an imported document. So all that's right straight for you. We also, in here, we have attached documents. This is something that gets questions a lot. How this works, this will allow you to send documents to the IRS with the return. And how this works is you'll import that scan, or you'll scan it with our integrated scanner, and you'll highlight that. You'll click Attach Document. You'll click New, and then these are the things that we can attach and send off to the IRS. So if it's anything to do with a divorce or, you know, a death certificate or hospital records, we can send all of that to the IRS with a little note to let them know that, you know, there's special occurrence with this tax return. All right, so document archive. Now, once all that information is scanned in there, one thing I want to do, the next thing I want to do is make sure that the rest of the return has been completed correctly, right? So I'll click Verify at the very top here, and that'll run a verify mode. So this is everything that's wrong with the tax return right now. And I told you at the beginning I wasn't going to complete the entire return. This is why. I wanted to show you that anything that's wrong with the return will show up here. Any missing information, any validation checks or warnings will be out here for you. So you know that everything, your due diligence, everything is taken care of. Okay. How this works is you double click on it. It'll take you straight to that place, that form in the field that needs your attention so you can focus and get it fixed. And then not only that, but when you hit Tab, once you fix it, or Enter, it'll bring this verify mode up again and forward you to the next message. So you can hit Enter and go to the next one. This is kind of a nice way to go through the return and make sure all of this is done for you. You can get through it very, very quickly. Next up, if it's a bank product, we want to make sure that we're choosing the correct thing on our 8879, right? So at the very top of the 8879 is the refund type, right here. And if we don't know what we need to put in here, we can look below. It'll tell us. And also to the right and to the bottom of those, it'll let us know. And I know in the new 2015 program, there are little pop-ups that, based on your choice, that'll ask you if you really mean this. And the reason it asks you is it's very important to get the correct number in here. So if we enter number 1, what this means is we're getting a check from the IRS. So the IRS will cut them a check and mail it to them in the address that you put on the client data worksheet. This means that before you submit the return, you need to get money, your tax prep fee, from that customer. This is not coming out of a bank product. This indeed is not a bank product. You're choosing to have a check printed by the IRS and mailed to this taxpayer. If we put a 2 in here, this is direct deposit from the IRS. You'll want to make sure that you enter their bank information on the client data worksheet, but you'll also want to make sure you get paid before you submit this return to the IRS. The IRS is directly depositing their refund into their bank account, so there is no bank product here. Number 4 is balance due, but number 5 is really what we want to choose if this is going to be a bank product. Okay, this is where that tax prep fee will automatically come out. You don't have to get the taxpayer to pay out of pocket. It all comes out automatically and is deposited into your account. And also, when we choose 5 here, the bank application is automatically added. Now, in 2015, if you choose 1 or 2, a little message will display and say, hey, did you mean to enter this? And be sure to get your money from the taxpayer before you send this off. If you hit number 5, this is the only one that adds this bank application here. So that's going to be a sign that you've added the right one. So here's our bank application. Okay. So now we know that everything is filled out correctly, that we've chosen to do a bank application, and now I want to show you what it looks like when verify is successful. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to leave this return. I'm going to go into Marvin Martin, I think. And if I click verify, there it is. So it'll tell you, it'll give you a little message, a successful message here, and tell you that everything's filled out, there aren't any errors or any of that. So what we're ready for now is to have the return printed out. And just to digress just a little bit, when we print a return, we can have these things sent to the document archive. So rather than print a hard copy of all of our returns, we can save ourselves some money and not have to spend so much on toner or paper or leasing the copy machines or all that. And we can send these print jobs to the document archive. The other thing that we've done is we have we have the ability to import signatures. So here's Joe, my tax preparer, and here's Joe's signature. Now all this information is going to port into the return along with their signature at the bottom. So when you set up the program at the beginning of the year, we'll sign, and the taxpayer won't have to sign returns. It'll automatically put in there. So all you have to do is get the taxpayer signature. I'll show you that here in just a second. There's also one for the EFIN. So if we look here, there's our EFIN. So all of that is imported into the return. When I click print, I can click the print final here. If it's a bank product, we might want to print the bank documents first, and that's done in the print menu at the very top. Now this print button, does the exact same thing as this final tax return option in the print menu. It prints out the whole return. Okay, so we'll print bank documents first. Right, here's our sign doc button, and it says, has the client reviewed the bank document? So you'll want to make sure that you do that with them so they understand what they're getting into. So we'll click yes, and again it'll ask, hey, do they know, have they read the agreement? They know what they're getting into. And now we can give a little scribble here. If I don't like it, I can click clear and try again. Otherwise, I'll click accept, and it'll pop up in a PDF format. And here's my scribble signature. Additionally, those other signatures are imported for us automatically. See that? So all that comes in for us. So the bank app is done. Now we'll click print to print the full return. And we have that same sign doc button. There's our signature. So we'll give another scribble. Accept, and again it pops up in a PDF format. Anywhere there's supposed to be a signature, there's going to be a signature. All the state documents, all the federal documents, they'll all have a signature. So if you think about it, the document archive and printing to it allows us, and also importing those signatures allows us to save money on toner and printer. No more printing out the return, no more highlighting each of those places that need to be signed. No more waiting for the signature to sign it. No more making sure they didn't miss any signatures before they left. All of that is handled with one signature. And anywhere there's supposed to be a signature, it's going to have it there. So that really will speed us up, especially when states are attached to tax returns, can save us up to 3 to 5 minutes per tax return to get all that in there. All right, now we've printed, everything's filled out. We're ready to send it off. And transmitting the tax return is a two-step process. When we're in the tax return, what we'll do is we'll click transmit here. Okay. Now this is 2014. In 2015, we want to make this process a little more clear, so we changed the name of this button to Q. Okay, so mine says transmit, yours will say Q. What'll happen is I'll click transmit, and it'll automatically queue it up if everything's ready, and I'll click send. The return will close. Here it is, return queued, and now it's out on the work in progress. So if we look at our transmit to central site here, there's tax returns. If we look at our filter, here's Marvin all ready to go. If we don't want Marvin to go, we can unmark him. Otherwise, if we're ready, now when we click transmit here, this is submitting the return to the IRS. So when you're inside the return, it's actually submitting it. It's putting it in this queue here for submission to the IRS. Then you'll have to come to the work in progress, transmit to central site, and transmit down here to actually submit that return to the IRS. Now, I want to show you guys, let's go back into a return real quick. I want to show you guys a little, some of the tools that are available inside the return here. The first being this payments data. This basically is a way for you to keep track of the money that's supposed to be in your petty cash. So if somebody is not doing a bank product and they're paying you with a cash or a credit card or even a personal check, you can enter that information here and it'll track it. You can run reports on this and you know exactly what is supposed to be in your petty cash, who's received, a little memo, any kind of note that you want to put in here. This is very handy if you're taking actual money from people rather than just doing bank products. Next to payments is a button called Quick. Now what this does is it allows us to, without leaving the return, to look up the status of a return that we have, right? So we can't look up the status of a return that's at H&R Block or Jackson Hewitt or any of that stuff. It has to be a return that you completed. But you can enter the Social Security number here, and you'll click search. It'll actually transmit, I'll get an error message, but it'll transmit to the central site and gather any information that we know about this return. So if you have somebody that's calling you every 15 minutes wanting to know where their check is, you can quickly click on this button that says Quick, enter their Social Security number, and you'll get an exact where this return is in as far as the status goes. Even the bank information, so if the check is ready, how much it is, any of that stuff. Now, I'll tell you a secret. Actually, the number one reason our customers call our tech support staff is querying a tax return. They want to know where the check is at or what the status of a return is. What we do when you call our tech support staff, what the tool that they use to look does the exact same thing that this tool does. It looks up, it'll gather their name, it'll look up the status, it'll query our central site and get that information live, just like this tool does. So any information we know about them, we get from the IRS, that'll be on our central site. And if you use this Quick feature, you'll look up that exact same information that we see, and it'll save you a call to our support staff. You know, if you see something that's a little strange and it may be stuck, this is also a nice way to kind of, okay, now it really does appear to be stuck to me. I can call support. But otherwise, this may save you some calls to support. It really is the number one reason why people call our support staff. All right, that's Quick. Next up, we have Notes. So this is our Prepare Notes. Now, this is nice if somebody has gone delinquent on you. If you've taken some money from them and submitted their return, but they haven't come back to pay you for the rest of your prep fee, you can enter a note. This note will pull into next year's return when they come back to have their return done. You'll see this note pop up. So this is a nice, handy way of keeping track of that. The other thing is if we enter a note here, I'll just enter a fake note and save it. Notice we have Prepare Notes over in our attached forms list. So this will let us know that there are some notes attached to this return. This is the first thing that pops up when you open a return as well. So, so you're sure to know about these notes. We can click Delete to get rid of it. It'll disappear. If you want to send a note to the IRS, those notes do not go to the IRS. If you want to send one to the IRS, all the way at the bottom of all forms and schedules is the IRS notes. This is something that will be sent off to the IRS. So you can put, if you've uploaded a document to the document archive, you know, medical records, you can put a little note in here about that. All right, last but not least has to do with bookmarks. Any field in the program inside a return, you can right-click and you'll get a menu, and in that menu is bookmarks. Anywhere, it doesn't matter. Even the off-the-wall, you know, information and status, doesn't matter. And when we click bookmarks, we can enter a note, and this could be anything. Maybe we did a pay stub loan and we want to look at the W-2 before we send this off. We'll click OK. We have bookmarks over here in our attached forms list. But what's handy about bookmarks is when we go to transmit this, it won't let it go through. It says, hey, there's a bookmark here. And it'll take you straight to that spot. The other thing that's nice, if I just save this here, if we come out to here, the return selection grid, we have a column for bookmarks, and it'll tell you that certain returns are bookmarked. So you can come in here and say, okay, what is this bookmark? All right, so you can take care of this and delete it, and then now it'll get ready for us to go. Man, we messed up here because we printed our bank documents. All right, now that is completing a basic 1040 return, everyone. We have about 12 minutes for questions. Justin, are you there?
I am. Thank you very much, Jeff. There's a lot of information to get through, so thanks for getting through that. Want to remind everyone at this time, again, in the bottom right-hand corner of your GoToWebinar menu screen, you can see a Questions tab. If you go ahead and expand that, you can enter any questions you have that we might not have covered there, and we'll do our best to answer those right now. And while you're entering some of those questions, just want to again remind everyone that you can follow us on social media. Again, I highly recommend that you and the rest of your staff follow us on Facebook, Twitter, where we post a lot of great information, industry breaking news as it comes out, tax updates, IRS information, tips and hints on the software, a lot of great content. And also, if you follow us on YouTube, go to our YouTube channel and follow us there. YouTube will send you an email notification every time we put out or post a new video there. So eventually we will be posting all the videos of the webinars that we have run over the past several weeks and will run in the coming weeks. So I highly recommend that you do that. Also, if you have not already done so, again, hopefully you have, but if not, the software is available for download right now if you did renew or purchase for the 2015 tax season. So go to crosslinktax.com and log in. In the upper right-hand portion, there's a login button. Click that, log into your account, go to the Downloads tab, and you can download the software there. All right. Why don't we get into a couple of the questions that we had. Jeff, the first question, and I believe it pertained to doing a bank product. The options were number 1 was for a check from the IRS, number 2 for direct deposit, and number 3 for reserved. What does reserved refer to?
Reserved is something it's a holdover from when we had RALs. So this option used to be for RAL. This was a rack. I mean, the RALs are gone these days, so instead of getting rid of this, we kept it there just in case something else would come up. So this is like a non-issue. Just don't worry about it. It's there for us.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you. Hopefully that that clarified that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next question. Actually, we're getting quite a few questions about the new healthcare questionnaire. I'm not sure if you have the 2015 software up right now, or if you could briefly just show that that new questionnaire. But we were getting quite a few questions about that.
Yeah, I don't want to go too deep into it because we have a webinar that's going to really get into it, but I'll show you on the client data worksheet what it looks like. So it's changed. We still have our call a doctor at the top, but now we have these questions that kind of help to guide you to filling out the correct forms. And again, I don't want to get too deep into this because we have a webinar coming up about that that's really going to go about that. If you're curious about this, be sure to get signed up on our website. But the gist of it is, if they come to you with certain forms or if they have purchased insurance in specific ways, what this will do is help guide you through entering those that information correctly. So one of the things we know is that the customer is going to come to us with a 1095A. If we fill that, if we answer this question, and I'm going to refresh so I stay on this page, notice it automatically starts adding some of these forms here. So in a nutshell, that's basically how this is going to help. And again, if you're curious about this, please sign up for that webcast. We do have an Affordable Care Act webcast that's going to go very much in depth into all this stuff.
Okay, yeah, thanks. And again, everyone, that's located at crosslinktax.com, and up in the events tab at the top, just go to fall webinars and click on completing ACA-related forms, 8962 and 8965, and we have 2 webinars scheduled for that, one on Monday of next week, the January 12th, and one on the, next Friday, January 16th. So definitely recommend, if you want to get all of your questions answered on that topic, that you register for one of those webinars. I know we're putting quite a bit of information into that webinar, so that'll be a good one to attend, especially with this being the first year of the ACA and its effects on tax returns. So, all right, I'll move on to the next question. And this is a good general one for everybody, or for those of you somewhat new to the software, in using either the electronic signature pads or the handheld scanners. When you purchase the software, please remember that we don't sell the scanners or signature pads. We actually have other parties that we have worked with to get you can get a little bit of a discount on those products, especially some of the refurbished units and whatnot. But if you go to the website, and again, that's crosslinktax.com, go to the Features tab at the top and either select electronic signature pads or Scan in Store, either one of those, and go down to the bottom. There are links there to send you to the vendors that we've partnered with that sell those units. So that's where you can purchase those. You can also purchase them. You can find the model numbers that we list on the website, and you can search for them on Amazon or the internet, and you can probably find a good deal there. So just want to, as Jeff is showing you right now. So yeah, highly encourage you to do that. It's a really great time saver. Using those ancillary products. Okay. All right. So another question: will texting to the taxpayer give them a resource so they will know why they were rejected? Maybe you can just kind of briefly kind of go over everything. Maybe a few of the things you can do with the TextLink feature.
Sure. Now, what happens is you'll text message the customer for whatever reason, if their check is in, if it's rejected, whatever reason. First off, we need their cell phone, we need to opt in, and we need their carrier so we can get that message routed to them. What this allows us to do then is to click send text at the top, and then we enter that information, whatever that text message is, that we type here. So any resource that they'll have to know why it's rejected will be offered by you. You'll tell them, hey, your son's name doesn't match the Social Security card. Can you come in and bring that information? We'll get that taken care of. So that's the resource that will let them know why that's rejected. Otherwise, it won't tell them. It'll only show them what message you've sent. There's a couple of other things. If you purchase the TextLink Plus, there's a TextLink Plus messaging. This is something that people miss quite a bit. That's attached to each return, just like the document archive. And this is a log of all the conversations you've had with this customer. So each customer has their own little text message plus messaging system here. That's basically it. There is a way also to message multiple people at one time. If we run a quick report, there's a send text at the top of these reports that will send them out as a batch. So everybody in this report will receive a single message that you typed for them. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. Yeah, I think that pretty much covered it. Okay, here's another one, hopefully real quick one. Some states require local taxes to be listed. Is it possible for you to show that in the software? Where you might
all of that stuff, each state is different. I don't really want to go into anything in particular. They will definitely help you fill in some of those. There are city taxes and that kind of stuff that will be in there. If you have trouble with that, what I would do is call tech support. They'll be able to help you through that. Like I said, each state is different and all that goodness, so I don't really want to go in too much detail on that.
Okay. All right, well, I think that pretty much covers it. Again, if we didn't get to some of your specific questions, again, I highly recommend that you reach out to your CrossLink sales team member, and they can either get a hold of the training team to answer specific questions, or one of our many state tax analysts here on site that I'm sure would be able to answer any specific tax questions you have, especially regarding specific states. So again, yeah, please, if we didn't get to anything, reach out to your sales team member, and they can set something up for you to make sure that we cover whatever it is that you're looking for as we head into the tax season. So with that, I'd like to thank Jeff for going through completing a basic 1040 in CrossLink tax software. And on behalf of everyone here at CrossLink, we wish you a very successful and profitable 2015 tax season. Thanks, everyone.